What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Quadcast, the show where we get real, get raw, and get loud about mental health, substance use, and the fight to take our lives back.
Each episode, we're cutting through the stigma, dropping knowledge, sharing stories, and bringing the heat with guests who have lived it and aren't afraid to talk about it.
So turn it up, lock in, and let's break barriers, spark change, and build a community that refuses to stay silent. You're tuned into the Quadcast, and let's get into it.
You can find us on Patreon, Facebook, Instagram, or email us. The Quadcast is always looking for new guests, whether you're individuals that have experienced it, you're in law enforcement, treatment programs, nurses, doctors, or anyone that just has something to say. Come share your story with us on mental health or substance abuse.
Warning, there's cussing in this video. If you don't like swear words, well, you're
watching the wrong damn show.
I think the biggest thing that gives these different organizations, home confinement, magistrate's office, I think everything that gives them a black eye in the whole big aspect of things is when somebody gets out on home confinement, cuts their bracelet, goes on the run.
Yeah.
That's a smack in the face to them. Obviously, they don't plan for that to happen, but when it happens, it's a slap in the face, and then it comes down on their shoulders, and they're the fall guy for it. And it's not just one person's fault, but then again, it's how it's written from the state as to how these offices have to proceed with their procedural understandings.
Yeah.
And it sucks because it does nothing but tie law enforcement hands and give everybody a black eye.
Yeah, I had a guy call me last week wanting me to violate somebody's bond.
I didn't know you could do that.
I don't violate people's bond. If they do something, their bond needs to be violated, then I might take that information to the person who does, and then they'll violate the bond, but I don't violate bond. So yeah, you're right, man. Law enforcement kind of sometimes bears that weight a lot, even though it's completely doesn't even involve law enforcement. A lot of people forget that our involvement a lot of the times is at the scene, making the arrest, going to the magistrate's office if it's during the day. If not, then going to jail, or maybe during the day going to the magistrate's office and then going to jail. And that's where the buck stops. Now, then you've got your paperwork, obviously. And then you got to go to court. But after that initial event, that initial incident where we're involved, that's it, man. That's where our job ends.
Right. So what changes or reforms do you think could improve the way the justice system handles addiction?
That's a big, I don't know.
That's a biggie.
That's a big one. I don't know, man, because if you do one thing, you're gonna make half the people mad. Then if you do the other thing, you're gonna make the other half of people mad, and it's never gonna get the attention that it deserves. For the longest time that we were doing drug court, and I think drug court's still a thing. I haven't really been involved in it as much as I'd like to have, but people are in drug court, and maybe they'll violate the conditions of drug court. They'll fail a P test or whatever, and then they'll sanction them, and then they'll go to jail for a minute, and then they'll come back out. Then they're back in drug court, and then they mess up again, and then they get sanctioned again, and then they get out of jail, and they come back to drug court, and then they mess up, and then they get sanctioned again, and then it's 3 strikes, and you're out kind of thing. If you're going to run drug court, maybe be a little bit more stern. Drug court thing's probably not a bad idea, but, maybe even so, but I don't know. So for example, somebody's arrested for a burglary and they plead guilty. They take a plea, and part of that plea is to complete drug court with several years of probation after.
Sure.
Don't make it so easy to fail, or don't make the consequences so light. You know,
Right.
if say it like this, say, all right, you plead guilty to this, you got a 1 to 3, you know, or you've got 2 years probation. If you fail this, then you're going to prison. You know, say if you fail, you're gone.
You're
I mean,
going to prison.
there's no there's nothing. You're gone. And then people might think twice. They're like, oh man, I'm gonna get high tonight, but I've got 2 more strikes. You know, I'll be all right. And that you just can't have that. That
Right.
is going to breed an entire system of taking advantage of a good thing. And so that to me is something that could be done if you're going to do drug court or anything like drug court. You know, it needs to be serious, and the consequences for failing out of drug court need to be serious.
I think that could be, honestly, across the board too, just steeper penalties with everything. You got, and that's everything from DUI to battery, whatever. I mean, the biggest thing that we have right now is people getting arrested, being incarcerated, getting released, and then just turn around and reoffending over and over again. And I think that, and I was talking to somebody the other day, and I think that is the black eye and the big stigma with addiction, is because everybody, somebody gets arrested for drugs, and, whether that be distributing, selling, whatever that be. And you see him back on the mug, you see him back incarcerated a week later for the same thing. And like, at what point do the consequences get steep enough to make you not want to do that anymore? Like,
That's a good question. One I don't have the answer to.
And buddy, I don't think anybody has the answer. I mean, if anybody had the answer, I feel like we would have already had the answer to that.
Sure.
But I think that is the biggest part. I think that's a big part of the stigma that substance use gets, is because of the reoffenders out there.
Yeah.
And most of them, some of them, I won't say most of them, but the ones that do reoffend are burglarizing to go out and get their next high.
Yeah.
They're not good people. They're out there driving under the influence. They're out there driving without a license, insurance, endangering multiple people and families. And yet they're out here on the street after they do what they do. And the drug dealer too. I think that's just where a lot of the stigma comes from.
Yeah. And then people get out of jail. Maybe they went to jail for a couple of years on a felony. And obviously this is also dependent on what the felony is, but they get out of jail and their desire is to actually become a contributing member of society. And then you got employers that won't even touch them. And they have no second chance. And then it gets to a point where they're like, well, screw it, I'm just gonna keep getting high. I mean, or I'm gonna start getting high again.
And rehabilitation is huge. Like, I mean, and that's all types of offenders. You have to be able to rehabilitate, because if they can't come back into society, what good is it to release them out of jail or prison? Like, if you're going to set the standards so high that this person, and this came up the other day, there was a guy who had been charged 10 years ago for, he was 24 at the time. He was talking to a 15-year-old, got busted, did 5 years in prison, got released, did his probation, all of that. And he got fired from his employer, which was an ATV dealership. At what point, he's not around kids at that job. He's not unsupervised at that job. If he didn't fail to disclose that criminal history, what prevented him from working at that particular job 10 years down the road after he has not reoffended and he's served his time that he was given. You know what I mean? So obviously, I wouldn't want him going back into a school.
No.
I wouldn't want him working at a daycare.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want him working at a restaurant per se, somewhere where he has readily access to a child or young person. But at an ATV shop that deals with adults and is an adult-owned company, I don't see a solid reason as to why he couldn't hold a job at somewhere like that. Now, that's a very opinionated topic, and it depends on how you look at it. And you have kids, and I have kids, you know, and that's kind of a tough spot to be in to even touch on that. But at some point, we have to rehabilitate the people that have done their time to give them a chance to re-enter our society to contribute, or we're going to house them for the rest of their life in a prison facility, and that's why our country's in debt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's, you can't just have one half of the conversation. If you're going to have the conversation, you have the whole conversation. And if the purpose of prison is to rehabilitate, then society is not ready to accept. Society is not ready to accept that rehabilitation, I guess. So sometimes, man, prisons just, they deserve to be there. Don't get me wrong, they deserve to be there, and
absolutely
for a long time. And as far as my, the crimes that you could commit that would, earn my sympathy, that doing something to a kid is
absolutely. And I don't agree. I'm against any child crime.
But again, you can't have one half of the conversation without the other one. Once someone's prison sentence is over, like, what do you do?
The justice system, he upheld his punishment by the justice system, and that's the task that we're faced with. And it doesn't make any sense because we don't hold everybody to the same standard.
No, we do not.
And, everybody jumps on the racism train. Well, my God, there couldn't be racism if we held everybody to the same standard.
Yeah, one would think that.
One would think. Now, I could be wrong, but that's what my common sense tells me. Let's see here. What training do officers receive about addiction, mental health, and crisis intervention?
So we have, I think my sergeant, he is trained in CIT.
Okay.
Crisis intervention training.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have one officer that is attached to the QRT, quick reaction team.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with them?
Not totally, no.
So essentially what they do is they'll go out, and if somebody overdoses, they'll get that information from law enforcement. They'll come down, they'll go to that person's house and give them information about resources to potentially help them recover. It's a very good program. A well underfunded program.
Where's the program out of?
It's West Virginia.
Is it?
Yep. Each region has their own QRT team.
Okay.
But they'll come down to the town there, and every Wednesday at the time they were doing it, and they'll have a table set up with information brochures, who to contact if you want help, or Narcan distribution, things like that. So, like I said, we have one officer that's in CIT and one officer that's in on that. Probably going to send a few more to CIT training. But yeah.
And you said every Wednesday when you do it, do you guys do it every Wednesday or just
It hasn't been
sporadically?
done recently, and I'm not sure the reason why. I'm going to have to dig into that. But I want to say something about funding. But
I mean, that would go hand in hand.
Yeah.
How does addiction impact families and neighborhoods in your jurisdiction?
In so many ways. I mean, I've seen there are places in town like where, you know, if you've got 10 houses bundled up together, 9 out of 10 of those houses is somebody lives there with a drug problem.
Right.
There are places in town like that. And then there are places where you got 10 houses bundled up together and one house has one person with a drug problem. So, you know, in a lot of these places, man, like that drug problem is going to affect the home internally. And, you know, obviously the child or children are seeing this happen and they're learning that this is just way of life. And then when they grow up and reality hits them and they understand that it's not easy to find a job, a very meaningful job or a fruitful job, they're going to revert to those same outlets that maybe their parent had or somebody else in their family, whoever it was. So it's like a learning behavior and you're product of your environment type thing. And that's the internal issue. And then the outer issue is that everybody, they hold their nose up to these people that are affected by drug addiction and they're better than they are. Which honestly, in some cases is debatable. I know drug addicts who would work circles around people who are completely sober.
Sure. I can name a couple of myself.
I mean, so it's debatable. Somebody has a drug addiction, that doesn't make them a bad person. And then you've got people who live high in society who think that, and they're, you know, they're better than they are. They just don't have an addiction problem.
And so that'll play into this next question as soon as I find it. What role does poverty, trauma, and homelessness play in addiction-related cases that you encounter?
I think those things are probably a byproduct of addiction. You know, obviously, homelessness and poverty, you know, obviously you're buying drugs instead of buying, you know, paying rent or paying a light bill. So poverty and homelessness kind of goes hand in hand with that. I think it encourages it really more than anything. And then on the adverse part of that is if you're homeless, impoverished, and then you don't have a drug addiction, you're highly more likely to start having a drug addiction. So those two things kind of go hand in hand, I think.
I would agree with that. And we've kind of answered this one in a roundabout way, and I'm going to try to ask it in a different way. Does addiction contribute to the types of crimes that you guys see on a regular basis more so than others?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, you know, once upon a time you were dealing with a variety type of calls. Most of the calls now they involve alcohol or drugs. Those two things are somewhere in the root of that problem. Then you have the other ones like your property disputes or complaints where those two people are just disagreeing about property. But most of the time, the root of the issue is either alcohol related or drug related.
So with that being said, how can communities and police departments work together to address addiction more effectively?
I think, I don't know, man. You get on Facebook and somebody will post a picture. Let's just say somebody's standing on Second Avenue and they're nodding off, and they post it on Facebook, and then and then I'm sure this has happened recently. I don't know. It happens a lot. I'm sure you've seen it. And then somebody will get on there, dope heads, stupid dope heads, or worthless, stupid junkies, whatever. And that is not doing anything for anybody. As a matter of fact, it makes that person look like a jerk. And then it's not helping this person because they're going to see it. May not be immediately, but they will see it. And then what do you think that's going to make them get sober?
Right.
No, they're already battling issues internally anyways. They're going to see that, it's going to make it worse, and they're going to get more high. So as a community, we should probably be more universally be more uplifting to these people who struggle. I'm just saying, be more understanding. I'm not saying give them money or give them property or give them whatever. I'm saying just try to be more understanding of the person. And, as a police agency, we should just keep pounding these drug dealers and get these drug dealers out of the way. And then maybe, we'll start to see some resolve. But again, it takes a village. And if the private citizens be more understanding of the drug user, I think we would be in a lot better place.
It's hard to fight fire with fire, if you want to put it that simple way. And that's about all we get done is fighting fire with fire, because our emotions on one side get the better of us, and we do it before we think. I catch myself doing it too. I think any person that has maintained a good career, a good family environment, a good lifestyle their whole life is super quick to judge if they've not been faced with actually dealing with it hand in hand in some, a medical field, law enforcement, first responder field. I think we're all too quick to judge, and I would fall in that category myself.
Yeah, me too. And I think if a lot of people would spend more time in the mirror, the world would be a lot better place. I mean, because, this person may not be addicted to drugs, but there are probably some other underlying things going on, or another crutch or another vice that exists. Everybody has one. Everybody has a vice or a crutch. Some of them are not, some of them don't destroy your body and mind and health, but everybody has a vice, and it's just unfortunate that person chose drugs.
Absolutely. All right, a couple more here, and we'll start to kind of get wrapped up. What has been your most memorable or impactful experience dealing with someone struggling with addiction?
That's a good question, man. Meaningful? I would say just my approach on the public, trying to understand people and treating people the same no matter what. And they see me the next day or the day after or whatever, and they thank me. Some even give me a hug, and not trying to get any kind of glory or anything, but on an internal level, I think that's pretty meaningful for me. That I know at that time that whenever this incident was going on, they were talking to me, and they genuinely thought that I was there for them. Mm-hmm. And I was. And, several days later when they approach me and say that, it's very, very meaningful.
And I got a couple of those instances after I was away from law enforcement for a while. And one of my last ones, there was a guy, they were having a party at their house, up above the bank there in Alderson. And, it was a call for EMS. It wasn't even a call for law enforcement. And I responded. He had just blacked out and fell face first into like a concrete patio. And you know, I got there and EMS got there, and he was a veteran, and he, like I said, blacked out, smashed his face up real bad, and was just laying there unconscious. And we rolled him over and went to strap him to the backboard. And man, he come up out of there like he was, the guys down there that were at the firehouse down there. I mean, they're pretty big guys, and he was lifting all of us up trying to get him strapped to the backboard. And he had a freaking steak knife in his pocket and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I literally had to sit on top of him all the way to I had to sit on him all the way to the ER. And he actually came to the office. He came over to the office like a month later, and nicest guy, apologized, thanked everybody. He wrote thank you cards to everybody. And it wasn't too long after my accident, he actually reached out to me on Facebook. He was like, man, I just want to let you know that I've been sober ever since then. And I want to thank you so much. I'm like,
That's
there
everything.
actually may be some good done in this job after all.
Yeah, that's everything right there.
It's not all bad. And it's just those little things that you go home and reflect on, and like, maybe you did make a difference.
Yeah. And that probably sums up my answer too, is having that internal conversation with yourself, knowing that you went into the job to make a difference, to try to help people. And then when it comes around and people verbally let you know on a personal setting, when it's just you and them, how they feel, and then that it makes it worth it, man. That all makes it worth it.
Absolutely. I had a guy that I arrested for embezzlement one time from the feed store down there, and it was only like $2,800, and I arrested him. He gave the money back, like he still had the money, and he gave the money back to the owner, and I still took him to jail. And every time I would see him out after that, he would come up and just shake my hand and say thank you. And it's like, dude, I took you to jail.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong. It's just, it's crazy to see that some people are so thankful for you actually stepping in and doing what you're supposed to and resolving that issue and making them take the right steps to correct it.
Yeah.
Instead of just letting them out of it or babying them and coddling them through it and them suffering no consequences whatsoever.
You're holding people accountable, but you're not.
That's just it. And I would much rather be held accountable than just be brushed off to do that, do it again, or think it's okay, or think that it's not as serious as it should have been. Like, I would much rather people do that.
Absolutely.
And I think we would get further as a society if we would do that.
Yeah, people take the lick and then get better for it. If people get held accountable and then they go the opposite way, they're not ready yet. They're not ready. They're not ready.
You learn by doing wrong for a reason.
Yeah.
We learned by doing wrong at the academy by getting shot with sim rounds in the neck. Like, actions have consequences, and we've gotten so far away from that because there's an organization for this and an organization for that to go out and protest for what isn't right, just to get by, because we don't think somebody should be treated one way or another in court, or some way, somehow there is somebody trying to justify those actions somewhere.
Yeah.
When there shouldn't.
And that's, my dad told me when I was starting this job, he said, son, he said, you're going to have conversations with people, very bad people, and chances are they know that they are a piece of crap, You may not think that, or you may think that, but chances are they know they're a piece of crap. You don't need to sit across the table and tell them they're a piece of crap.
Right.
That's something my dad told me when I was coming up in law enforcement that I carry with me today. And that's something that I've never said to a person is they're a piece of junk, or never said to a person.
And there's no room for it, and especially in today's time, there's no room for it. But one thing that always stuck with me through law enforcement was you will get further by treating the addict, drug dealer, homeless person, whoever, like an individual and a human with decency than you will, I'll just go ahead and say it, motherfucking somebody.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
that's how it, I mean, I guarantee you I can still pick up the phone today and reach out to any of the people that I arrested with dope on them, and they'd probably still narc on somebody if I asked them. That's exactly just because I treated them with that little ounce of respect then, and that, I didn't treat them like a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of younger officers these days don't understand is, yeah, you may wear a badge, but it doesn't give you the right to go out there and jump down somebody's throat the first chance you get.
Because, people commit crimes. It keeps us in business, but people in general also keep us in business. So
absolutely,
just be nice. I mean, it's not hard. It's not a hard concept. Just try to be nice to people.
It's not hard. You had to grow up doing it. I mean, it's no different these days. I don't know. I mean, times have changed so much, and honestly, I've seen it in raising my own child as to how times have changed so much because of how much they pick up in school from everybody else, or pick up about just random crap off the internet, man. Like,
absolutely,
freaking YouTube, bro. I'm telling you, it is. We need to go back to the days of like Barney and shit. Because this shit these kids are watching now, I don't even think my mom would have let me watch this crap when I was young.
Brain rot.
Dude, it's terrible. What gives you hope about the future of addressing addiction through law enforcement and community work?
Excuse me. I think our community, that we serve, I'm very blessed to be down here, man. And, we do things all the time, and the community sometimes may not understand it, but they accept it, for the most part. Sure. We've got our people that just hate law enforcement all in general. It doesn't matter what you do, they're going to have something negative to say. But man, I started going in the weeds there. What gives me hope? Yeah, man, it's our community. I think if we start to change some things, if we keep doing our job, putting people in jail for drugs, drug dealing, then people will start to buy in, and they'll start to understand. And then we need our politicians and our department heads to buy in too. And eventually, if we work the problem together, then things will change. And I really do believe that we've got a good group of people right now. The magistrates, too, excellent, man. You got the judge. I mean, we're just lucky. This community is very lucky. And if we keep moving in the direction we're going to be all right. And that gives
Summers County's always been a very tight-knit community.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, and it has been even before I went into law enforcement. And it was while I was in law enforcement. I honestly think that I think the drug problem down there right now is better off than it was 8 years ago when I was on the road. Obviously, I wasn't down there, but it seemed like we had more drugs coming through Alderson from Summers County than anywhere else. Now, whether it was coming from the actual city or the outlying areas, which I think you know exactly where I'm saying that it was coming from, But it seems to be a better place now than it was then.
Yeah, I think it's fair because at the time, once upon a time, people were doing like pills,
Right.
and then people stopped doing pills, and some of those people started doing heroin. But some of those people that were doing pills were like, I ain't touching that shit. I'm not doing heroin, and so they stopped doing pills and heroin, or maybe they still do pills a little bit, but they still smoke weed. And then you got the heroin people. So there's less, I mean, probably less like severe drug addiction overall. And then it may be worse. I don't know. It may just be on a smaller scale, or not smaller scale, but it may be more discreet. But definitely, from an observation standpoint, it seems to be less overt.
And I mean, yeah, I would put it that way. I mean, just from what I know personally, and that's just what I see here and catch through the rumor mill. But I mean, in my opinion, I would say that it is on a trending upscale from what it used to be. Definitely, I mean, I don't know how, like you said earlier, that you had, dealing with fentanyl and heroin. Meth used to be the biggest thing that we would be taken off the street.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not the flavor of the week, but meth used to be everywhere. It used to be in almost everybody's vehicle that you'd stop that was a known user or a dealer anywhere. It used to be meth. That used to be it. It's crazy.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Quadcast.
Remember, breaking stigma doesn't stop when the episode ends. We're building a movement, and you're a part of it. Stay strong, stay aware, and stay connected.
And this is the Quadcast, signing out.